welcome, dear listener, to another episode of the Guitar Nerds podcast. I am your host, Joe Branton, joined this week by 40 Watt Podcast's Phillip Carter.
Well, howdy.
Well, howdy indeed. Hello, Phillip. Welcome back.
Hello, Joseph. How are you, sir?
I'm good. It's good to have you back on Guitar Nerds for 2024.
Yeah, first episode of 2024. After, I did all the yelling about amps on Gear of the Year.
Yeah, exactly.
Feeling real good about those episodes. I think we did well.
It was the best Gear of the Year. I had a really good time.
I talked to Charles from Silktone while I was at NAMM. Actually, he wasn't at NAMM. I was at they do this. Chase Bliss does this like effector market at a brewery on Saturday, and so I went there, and I was sitting across from Charles just chatting before I realized who he was, and he realized who I was. It was great, and like the first thing he said after he realized who I was, "Thank you for Gear of the Year for amps." So like, yes, exactly.
There you go. Wow. Well, we were actually, dear listener, we were talking just before we started about, and it's something obviously, you'll have noticed, dear listener, that the title of this podcast is Amps and Boards. We can't not talk about amps when we've got Phillip on the podcast, and I want to talk about pedal boards. Anyway, I'm digressing. We were talking about, before this podcast, about your new mini pedal board, Phillip, which is pretty Chase Bliss heavy. You're actually just
it is a wild
pedals.
thing. I've discovered, as much as I love giant pedal boards and like every flavor of drive and having everything, and switchers and wildness, I hate using them. I absolutely hate using them.
Is it you hate using switches? Do you hate being tied into particular sounds rather than being able to create freely?
I hate using switchers. I hate having to worry too much about all the little things that honestly a lot of people never think about, but it's in my head and I know it, so I can't stop thinking about things like the way pedals interact with each other, impedance, the way things flow, and then you got to worry about a bunch of cables. Like once you introduce a ton of cables and points of failure, even with great cables, there's extra stress. I don't want it. I want like as few cables as possible. So I've got this idea. I bought used last year when I was building a big board, actually.
Yeah. I remember that.
That lasted all of like a day.
It really did. I feel like you sent me a picture of this finished massive board, dear listener, with like an ES8 as the brain and then all of this stuff. And it was an Alder and Ash like custom pedal board. And then like the next day you were like, I'm selling it. I'm building a mini board.
Dude, it stressed me out so bad that I knew that I had to tear it apart. And I got it all put together and was like, yes, it's done. I hate this. Sell everything. And I sold the board. I sold the ES8. I mean, I lost money on it. Don't get me wrong. I bought all that stuff used, so I didn't lose too much money. The big loss was all the cabling that I bought and made. So I still got all the cabling here because I'm not going to try to sell used cables I soldered myself.
Sure, they're handy.
Yeah.
But actually on the cable front, I always find like Tim, the guitarist in my band, who is has loads of gear, is super technical, but he's not into stuff in the same way. He loves using it. He doesn't care about buying the next thing every time.
Sure.
When he built his board, I was like, oh, here you go. I'll give you all this custom cabling so you can cut everything and make it all neat and tidy. And he found, having gigged that stuff, that the cut-to-measure cables break. They're not reliable. And whenever there was a problem, it was those cables.
Yeah.
And
it's what I tell everyone. It's always a cable.
Yeah,
it's always a cable.
But it especially seems to be the ones that you cut to size. And he uses now, has gone back to, he just buys those big multi-packs that you could get like on Amazon of multicolored cables at different lengths, because he knows he's got something for every situation, and it tends to be an easy fix if something goes down, but rarely does. Yeah. So I know that we are guitar nerds, dear listener, and I get that I don't use that stuff, but I thought it was really funny to see, I guess, how every YouTuber and bedroom guitar player with a huge board and incredibly neat cable tidied built to measure cables doesn't have those sort of players probably don't use them in the application of touring, and when it comes to touring actually just needs something to work and be functional. So having it cable tied down or neatly
Yeah.
put away is counterproductive. What you want to be able to do is whip that out very quickly if there's an issue and change it for something.
Yeah, at the risk of promoting giving someone free advertising, which they sort of pay for advertising on my podcast, so it's fine. I've switched over to using listeners won't be able to see this, but I've switched over to using Tour Gear Design patch cables.
They look great. They're really small footprint.
They are the smallest footprint on the market. You literally can't get any smaller and still be able to use them.
Wow.
So and they offer so many different lengths, and they offer them in like what they call S configuration and C configuration. So the direction of the direction of the plugs themselves.
So you're not twisting the cable too much.
Exactly. So you're not twisting the cables. You never have to twist the cable. And they offer them in so many lengths. And I messaged them so much when I had Marco from Tour Gear Designs on the podcast. And since then, I messaged him like bugged him. I was like, you need longer options. Like they didn't have when I was using a slightly bigger board. And those listeners, you who do the thing that I do, you do all your drives on the front row and then your time and modulation on the back row. And you've got to get from that bottom left corner to the upper right corner of your pedal board. It's always the longest cable run.
Yeah.
They didn't have anything long enough. So I was having to use a connector, like a barrel connector, to connect two cables.
Oh,
to
really?
Get that run. Well, now they offer them in lengths that are, you could run like the biggest pedal train and get across it now. So I go with them.
Cool. What was that brand again? Because I'd not heard of them.
Tour Gear Designs.
Right. Tour Gear Designs.
They're super robust. I've not had one fail on me yet. Smallest design possible. They offer them so many sizes, and if you put 40 watt in the code, you get 10% off.
Oh, there you go, dear listener.
Look at that advertising on your podcast. I apologize.
No, not at all. That's actually kind of exactly what I needed. I've been looking for something with a really small profile, and I've got some. The Ernie Ball patch cables tend to be what I go for, but they are expensive. I mean,
they are.
I've no idea what the price of these ones are, but the Ernie Ball ones feel especially pricey when I can only buy them in packs of whatever it's like 3 or 6, and you get, two of the small ones, 2 of the medium, 2 of the long, and you have to buy them like that. And I just end up with surplus amounts of the small ones because I rarely need that size. I just rather my money was going towards the specific cables that I need.
Oh, sure. No, that makes total sense. They're pricey. I'm not gonna lie. I won't tell you they're not pricey because you're paying for a pretty well made product.
Of course.
But you can buy them in singles or 3-packs. What I did is I just put a bunch of money away. Scored away like $150, $200, and I bought a metric ton of them. I bought as much as I could. Milked that 10% discount, and I have a whole bunch just ready to go whenever I need them because I got tired of not having a cable when I needed it. So I bought a bunch of lengths, a bunch of arrangements.
Smart.
And that it's a worthy investment if you're into pedal boards and you're into building pedal boards and you're constantly changing your pedal boards, putting more stress on those cables every time you're moving them around. Just buy a bunch of good cables. Just put some money away, buy a bunch of good cables, and never have to worry about it. They also offer, this was pretty new, and I'm super excited about it because I'm starting to use an expression pedal more. They offer TRS and TS, so you got tons of options there. But so of course now I have all those cables, and my new pedal board is going to have all of 3 pedals on it. So
you literally need 2 patch cables for the board.
Well, I may set it up to be able to run stereo when I want to, but I found a stupid good deal on a used Line 6 HX effects.
Such a good pedal.
It just makes sense. It just works. That's the trick. It just works. So I'm going to run the CXM. I'm sorry. We'll start with the beginning. I'm going to run the preamp Mark II, the Chase Bliss, into the HX effects, and then I'm going to run the Chase Bliss 1978 CXM reverb in stereo into the loop of the HX effects, so that I can move it
Right.
around and put it wherever I
Oh,
want it.
that's smart. So you're not just putting it, not just going in a simple. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's cool. I mean, when we were talking about this before the podcast, I was saying also don't forget that HXFX has great, really intuitive, easy MIDI controllability as well.
yes,
And because you can control those lovely faders, those mechanical faders on the Chase Bliss pedals, because you can control those via MIDI,
right.
which is very handy. Because of course, whilst the preset button is great, you are scrolling, and scrolling isn't very helpful live.
No, it really isn't. I don't know. We'll see if I need to use it in that way, if I need to be flipping settings that quickly. My guess is for the stuff I do, not. But I could understand where there is an allure and a draw to it, because it puts everything really, really accessible really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we're gonna talk about more about pedal boards a little later in the podcast when we move on to the main topic. Before we do, I wanted to talk about the sound sample of the week. So straight off the bat, I finally, after having these for a couple of weeks, I've got round to messing around with the Diamond pedals that I bought. Now that Diamond are back as a brand, being built by Solid Gold Effects. But it's wonderful to have this company back. And I picked up the bass compressor and EQ pedal and the Tremolo, and they are both very, very good. I think the great what I really love Diamond pedals for being really proper like utility pedals. I love that they're simple. I love that there's no graphics or artwork, that sort of modern trend for things, which is totally fine. It looks great a lot of the time. I just love how simple they are. It's just always just a color, the Diamond logo, the names of the controls, and crucially the names of the controls aren't ridiculous things like everyone wants to do these days. They just say what the control does, which is great. But they always manage to add a little bit more to their effects. So the bass compressor EQ has a level control, which makes sense, and a compression level control, which I really like. I like it when people just go, "This is the compression." You're not messing around with like a balancing ratio and threshold and things like that. They've decided what this pedal sounds like, and you're just controlling how much of that you want, which is kind of nice. Then the other two controls are your EQ controls, which are mids and a tilt. And they also have a little switch, a little mini switch, which is the tilt frequency. So you're flicking between 250, 900, and 500. Yeah, that's correct. That's weird. So you're just choosing sort of how pronounced those mids are, stroke scooped they are, which is great. I mean, just having a mids control on like a bass compressor is really interesting, rather than it being bass and treble. Often, like you look at things like the Sansamp bass driver, and mids is the control that's missing from that. It's just
Yeah,
bass and treble. I really like that they just what you're doing with mids is you can scoop it, modern sound. You can boost it, retro sound, and those are the two bass sounds essentially.
yeah. Boosted is always the way to go, personally, but I'll live on that hill. I think mids in bass sound really, really good. I hate it when bass disappears. I remember listening to do you remember the 90s, late 90s, early
Barely.
2000s artist Edwin McCain? He had that big
No.
hit with I'll Be, a big ballad singer, right?
Right. Okay.
Well, before his record label tried to turn him into a ballad singer, he was really this soulful, funky New Orleans vibe singer-songwriter. And so he had a first album called Jesters, Dreamers, and Thieves. I think that was the title. That may have been a song on it. I can't
Right.
remember.
Okay.
And it has got some of the funkiest bass sounds and tones on that album. I don't remember who the bassist was, but I remember listening to that record, and a bassist buddy of mine listening to it, and the bass is really mid forward. It's really, really present in the mix, because it's really, really nice. And he said, I would shoot any engineer that made my bass sound like that. I said, are you kidding? That's the way bass should sound. I was like, that's it.
What do you think? It was a real sort of the 90s. We had a lot of like fretless bass was prominent in a lot of pop stuff. I feel like we had um, uh, oh, Peter Gabriel was like his was sort of primary solo record time, and it was just everyone wanted like mid pushed fretless bass that was just going all over the top of everything in pop,
Yes.
which
Everybody wanted it to sound like, I don't know, growly upright bass all the time. That was what they wanted.
exactly. Oh, that's cool. I could get behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But well, this Diamond bass compressor, dear listener, will absolutely let you do that. I think it's a great bass compressor. The sound sample that we'll play, I'm using both pedals, so there's a bass and a guitar and things like that going on. I've got like the compression maxed out, so it's quite a subtle compressor, because even with the compression maxed out, it sounds great. It sounds like how I want it, but like with it maxed out, it's kind of a bit like a medium setting on a Boss CS2 almost. So there's other compressors have a lot more. Not that you'd necessarily want that. I feel like they voiced it to be very tasteful. It's just I tend to err on the extremes of those. But really, really great compressor pedal. But obviously, for bass players, the Diamond Tremolo. This is an extraordinarily good pedal, and kind of the same thing, because I guess what I'm talking about with the bass compressor is, aren't those controls interesting and unique and not necessarily what you expect on a bass compressor? And exactly the same can be said of the Diamond Tremolo. Obviously, you have a volume control and a speed control, which you'd expect. But then they have a notched rhythm rotary control, which essentially gives you access to Boss slicer-like different tremolo rhythms, which I wasn't expecting on sort of a normal foot switch, a normal footprint like that. And then the DPT, which I haven't looked up what that stands for, what that rotary control does, which is I guess it's depth. There we go. I got there in the end. And it again has a little dip switch, which allows you to switch modes. And I'll bring up what they've said about it, because it's got quite a lot going on. So you've got 3 distinct trem flavors in one pedal. At its core, the Diamond Tremolo offers classic amp style optical tremolo, but you can add modulation with a sine, a shark fin, and a square waveform, and further enhance the pedal with a modern FET chopper preset as well on there. So it's really interesting being able to get not only kind of a vintage style throbby tremolo, but also be able to get some really modern, super choppy tremolo with rhythm style. So you can do the slicer thing as well. But, the slicer, as great as that pedal is, 90% of it feels like stuff that you don't need. Like this seems to just have the right amount of weird stuff to standard stuff. Like, you can't use the slicer for normal tremolo. It won't do it. So unless you're into crazy tremolo, then you wouldn't get a slicer. Whereas this will kind of do both things. It will be retro and vintage sounding, and it will be very, very modern, rhythmic sounding as well. Really good. I can't get enough of them. You've got the drive, right?
Yeah, I got the drive. Actually, it was an interesting story how I ended up with it, but neither here nor there. I really like it. I haven't spent enough time with it. It's one of those things that I didn't intend to get. I got it when I didn't intend to get. I donated some money to a giveaway to help someone who was having to have a heart transplant in the community, gear community, and part of the giveaway, like if you donated X amount of money, got entries, and I ended up getting drawn to get it. It's because Diamond donated, or Solid Gold Effects actually donated pedals for this giveaway to raise money for this good cause, which is great. I actually ended up winning 2 pedals in that giveaway, which is great. I love Solid Gold Effects in general.
They make such great stuff, and they're lovely people.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, I mean, but I ended up with the Commodore, which is their Solid Gold Effects drive that has the faders on it. That's basically a blues breaker, but with faders. And I got the Diamond drive, which I think it sounds great. I love that Diamond is back. I'm not gonna lie, I miss the bigger enclosures, just because that's who I am.
Yeah.
I also am sad, and I'm hoping this is something they will do later. I'm really hoping they'll bring back their vibrato pedal
Oh, I
because
never knew they did a vibrato
the
pedal. Oh, I'm
Diamond
going to look that up
vibrato.
now.
Even Dan over at that pedal show says it is his favorite vibrato of all time. They didn't bring it back, and the cheapest one on Reverb right now is $850
Oh my god, the
for
Vib
the old one.
one. Here we are.
Yeah,
Let's see what I can get one for this side of the pond. I mean, they didn't turn up this side of the pond that much anyway before.
yeah.
Oh yeah, wow. Yeah, I'm looking at sort of prices that they've got. It will go for Reverb do that.
Uh-huh.
What they've gone for in the past, somewhere between £289 and £463. But with the last couple that have sold, which have all been last month actually, went
Mhm.
for £413, 516. There was a 289 and a 442. Oh, gutted if you were the person that sold it for 289. What were you
Right.
doing?
Yeah, and it's like, so looking down at that for the US, it is 4 of them have sold last month, or sorry, in the last month,
Right.
and they sold, the final price was 535, 350, 625, and 500. So, the price right now is a little bit of an anomaly, but they're still expensive.
Yeah,
They're
that's a lot of money for a vibrato pedal when,
yeah,
you can pick up the JHS one, the Emperor, or the Boss VB2 for, £150.
exactly, for almost nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, or as JHS says, the price of a cup of coffee. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm hoping they'll bring that one back.
Yeah, that'd
I
be
I know
great.
that it makes sense not to have everything released all at once. You're not bringing everything back instantly. You're rebuilding the company a little bit, and
Yeah.
so we'll see what Solid Gold Effects does. But I'm just really glad especially glad that the memory lane is back as well. The delay
Yeah.
is such a good one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want an Electro Harmonics memory man, but you'd like it to work, then this is it is the solution. Oh, I love the Electro Harmonics pedals, but no one
Yeah,
ever wants to step on them. You've got to use them with a switcher if you're going to be heavy handed with them. That's the problem.
100%, 100%.
Yeah, but yeah. So I've built a little demo using both of these pedals. I am running my Fidelity Stella Rosa bass for the bass. I've got like these really old round wounds on there that I kept outside for a little while, like just the strings. So and then I cleaned like the rust off, and I put them back on, and they're so good. They sound so good now. So it's that on the Fidelity, and all you've got is like a B15 amp sim, and then the compressor on the front end. So I'm not doing any compression in the DAW at all. It's all coming from the Diamond pedal. And then there are a few guitars, like 2 or 3 guitars, all with slightly different tremolo settings, which maybe made it a little messy. And that's just on the Fender American Vintage Telecaster, the 52 Tele, with green pickups, custom 51 style. Bridge pickup is used for everything. Here's the sound sample. I had so much fun. The tremolo is one of the best tremolos I've ever played. There you go. There you go. The Diamond Tremolo and the Diamond Bass Compressor / EQ.
Joe, we need to talk about it. It's been talked about in the Facebook group. How just ridiculously catchy and good your demos are.
That's very
You have a
nice of you to say.
real talent at this. I
Thanks.
think
That's very nice of
you
you to say.
might want to consider a career. Oh wait, no, that wouldn't be a career change, would it?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. That's it comes from years of just well, not that I think I'm okay at it as long as I stay within my small area of being, of knowing what to do. Can't do any of the shreddy stuff. I'm no Rabir
Well,
Bassard or Joss Allen.
so here's the deal. The majority of guitar players can't do the shreddy stuff.
Oh, true.
The majority of guitar players want to hear it the way they would play it.
Exactly. I can play guitar as well as I want to play guitar, but then that's, like I'm a massive Neil Young fan. So
Yes.
so I love a one note guitar solo. But yeah, they're really good. They're really, really good pedals. I will say, like, the only problem I ever have, and I need to listen to one of my demos actually on the podcast after it goes out. So I assume it's fine on like Spotify and everything. But when you and me listen back to that, Philip, now it like sums it to mono when we're listening to it on the call, and it makes, when I put more than one guitar on, and they're obviously all panned so you can clearly hear them, when it sums to mono, I'm like, I can't, everything's a mess. But but I obviously, when I remove the audio, dear listener, that me and Philip hear in this podcast, and I pop back in a WAV that's properly stereo. So I assume you get a good I assume like Spotify and things like that don't resum to mono, but I've no idea.
Well, that means also, Joe, when you do that, I need you to make sure that it syncs with my head bobbing, because I was bobbing my head along, and it's going to look real bad if I'm like bobbing my head on like some awkward syncopated upbeat.
Oh, actually, well, on the video, because I realized on the first one, I was like, it's just so weird having like a minute and a half of us just sitting listening. So I just put like a screen up that has like a picture of whatever the thing is being demoed. I do that.
Oh, good, good, perfect. that way nobody thinks that I have zero sense of rhythm whatsoever.
Guitar Nerds is sponsored by iZotope and Native Instruments, two companies who provide the bulk of the recording and editing tools used by guitar nerds. If you have a home studio, or if you're thinking about getting into demo recording from home, then iZotope and Native Instruments provide the tools that you need to make premium quality recordings with ease and with virtually no equipment other than your guitar and laptop. iZotope make all the voice editing and audio repair tools that I use for the podcast each week, and Native Instruments Guitar Rig 7 is one of the best, most comprehensive collections of virtual effects and guitar amplifiers available anywhere. Use discount code NERDS10 on any product in the iZotope and Native Instruments catalogue for 10% off their fantastic range of tools.
But yes, yeah, so that was Sound Sample of the Week, dear listener. Diamond pedals, they're so good. Please go and check them out. They're obviously very premium, pricey, but they're really, really great examples of everything they do, always with they're just a little chef's kiss on what the controls are and how you can make the most out of it. I
know you say pricey, but I mean, like, the drive's what, $209 EUS?
Yeah.
It's pricey, but it's also sort of feels like the level for like a well-made, non-budget drive pedal. That's like the price point.
Definitely, I appreciate that's where where boutique stuff has gone. Absolutely, like I guess when I'm thinking about like how much a Thorpe FX pedal costs, they're normally around £300, and I always use Thorpe FX as like the benchmark of boutique stuff, I guess.
Sure, yeah,
and they're less than a Thorpe FX pedal, so they are.
but more than a tube screamer.
Yeah.
So
more than a Boss pedal, less than a Thorpe FX.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the deal. But,
awesome.
But yes, yeah. So let's have a little chat about what the title of this week's podcast, which was Amps and Boards. I wanted to talk, hopefully, without doing too much stepping over any previous podcasting that you've been on post NAMM.
Yeah,
but obviously,
well,
you got
thankfully
to
I've not. So,
well, there you go. Yeah, great. But you obviously got to go to NAMM, and you had a special focus on walking around and checking out some of the new interesting amplifiers that were out and about. Now, me and Matt sort of briefly mentioned certainly the Gibson things that came out, but you would have got to take a look at these. There are a handful of other brands as well. Well, let's talk about some of them. What were the cool amplifiers that you got to check out at NAMM 2024.
So, in full disclosure about my NAMM experience, it's weird, and I had this conversation with someone after, where they were like, "Oh, what cool stuff did you see? Like, what was the thing?" I was like, "I spent most of my time meeting people, and because I run a interview or conversation based podcast, I actually found that I listened or looked at a lot less gear than I expected." But it also felt like there weren't as many like big splash releases this year.
Definitely what Matt and I were saying on our NAMM roundup was
Yeah.
it was great. It looks like it was brilliant. It looks like NAMM was back in force. Everyone seemed to have a fantastic time.
Yeah.
But, I think even like my partner Emma was asking like what was the big thing from NAMM? I'm like, huh.
Well, yeah, because like last April, everyone was buzzing. Literally everyone was buzzing about the T-Rex Echo Rec, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I did get to see that. They had that again, talked with their artist they had playing, whose name is slipping my mind right now. And it's super cool. I want one. It's so inconvenient and it's so expensive and ridiculous, but it doesn't change that I want one. But I didn't feel like there was anything that like everyone had to see and find out about. There were a bunch of cool releases. I feel like the biggest release, at least for me, was something that wasn't even released at NAMM. So Gibson did a pre-NAMM media event at their LA showroom. And so I drove down to that on the Wednesday before NAMM. And they had all their new releases. They had all the stuff they're going to be releasing here, I guess, in the first couple of quarters, including the Dave Grohl 335, the Epiphone. Yeah. And I got to play that. Actually, I think I managed to have the first video of it out, period.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You won YouTube bingo.
Right? So, but it plays great. I've already got one on order. I think they're amazing. I have to have that guitar. I actually think the best releases from Gibson this year are all Epiphones. So they're releasing
bringing back the Firebird, aren't they? The Firebird 1.
They're putting out a Firebird 1. They're also putting out a a Firebird 5 with the Vibrola.
I didn't know that.
In some pretty cool finishes. Actually, I'm going to do the thing because I actually still have the information sheets right next to my desk for some reason. It's just because I don't throw anything away. So they're putting out the Firebird, the 63 Firebird 1 in Silver Mist, Heather Poly, and Inverness Green.
Wow, that's amazing because that only existed as a Joe Bonamassa signature model.
Exactly.
Before then.
And it goes for heavy money, like big money.
I remember working at GAC when they came out, and me and Matt were like, "Oh, we should get one." We were both so close, and we didn't. And they were, I think they would have cost us like £600 with staff discount at the time. And
gosh.
now they're like over £1,000 on the second-hand market. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. No, I think that's a very valid point. They're also putting out a 63 Firebird 5, with the Vibrola, and it comes in Frost Blue and Ember Red. And here's one for you, though, Joe.
What's Ember Red?
I didn't get to see a sample of it, and I've only got a small square on the info sheet, right?
I see.
Show me the color, so I can't really tell you.
Okay, I think Ember Red looks like I found a custom shop Firebird 5 in Ember Red. It is like a maroon-esque. It's not a metallic color. It looks like a flat color. Kind of reminds me of like a darker cardinal.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'm finding it now as well. Okay. That's not a bad color. It's not the one I'm excited about. No. Yeah. I think the Frost Blue look, which is the version I got to see and play, is amazing. But here's the real fun one. They're bringing out a 64 Epiphone Thunderbird with brand new design pickups that have never existed before. They're calling them the Pro Bucker 760 bass humbucker. It's coming in Silver Mist, Ember Red, and Inverness Green. There's not officially a price point on this, but actually yesterday I was on a live stream as we record this yesterday, with Steve from 60 Cycle Hum, and I looked it up. I found a dealer who had accidentally listed it too early.
Right.
And so now they had taken the page down, but the Google search had cached the price, and it was $849 US.
Okay.
And it comes with a premium gig bag. So that's actually, most of the time Epiphone doesn't come with
No,
a case
no,
or
of
gig bag.
course.
So,
Are those pickups chrome then? Are they kind
yes.
of, so that's the same sort of pickups that they flirt with doing chrome pickup versions every now and again. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
often on the cheaper Epiphone models, which I
Yes.
worry has made bass players associate chrome pickups on Thunderbirds with the
The
cheaper.
cheap.
But
I hope not. It was a lot of fun to play. I did
Yeah.
not plug that one in when I was because honestly, I was too busy playing the Dave Grohl.
Yeah.
There's a couple of interesting Gibson releases, but they're really not. I don't think there was anything that was like hair on fire excited about, like
not
I was
excited
about
by
the
Gibson
Epiphone.
mod.
No, not really. They've done the new studio lights, which I think are great for an affordable American made Gibson. Affordable in quotation marks, listeners. We understand.
Yeah.
I think I've been on this show enough that everyone understands what I mean when I say affordable. But they're re-releasing the J45 acoustic in a rosewood model instead of just the mahogany, and
that looked
they
nice.
brought out another Slash guitar.
Didn't they do a whole range of acoustics all in like an ebony
in black?
finish?
Yes,
that looks very good. Like
those look great. But I mean, they're good, and I'm glad they exist. But they're not like
they're not showstoppers.
Exactly, they're not showstoppers. So I'm really excited about those. But I did get to play while I was there the new Falcon series of amps, and I've been critical of these amps, and I'm still mildly critical. I think they could be built to a higher but I mean, it's a PCB amp
it's a
in the same
shame.
exactly in the same price range, let's be honest, as the PCB Fender amps.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, Fender just have the history of people accept that they're good. When Gibson release a PCB amp when they've not done it before. Yeah, I guess. Oh, one of the interesting things, and I was talking about this with Matt, and I was taking it straight from the Gibson press release, was, you know what I'm going to say, that they were saying Gibson's first amp since 1964 or whenever it was. And I was
that's
like, my
a
goodness,
load of
that's
horse
crazy.
hockey.
Yeah.
That's a horse hockey. They completely ignored the fact that they put out amps in the late 90s and early 2000s designed by Trace Elliott under the Gibson Gold Tone moniker.
Guitar Nerds is sponsored by Stringjoy Guitar Strings, the world's first true guitar string custom shop. The thing that I love most about Stringjoy is just their attention to detail, their dedication to making their strings the best in the world. And that's a labour-intensive task that they don't shy away from. Stringjoy are also innovative. They're always looking for new ways to make strings better. As guitar players, we've become so used to all the shortfalls of commercially available strings that we stopped even looking for them to be better, last longer, intonate well, easily. Stringjoy bring all of that to every pack of strings they make, and they're available almost as readily as any other generically made guitar string. Stringjoy strings are available at stringjoy.com and at 400 plus dealers across the globe. If your local store doesn't stock Stringjoy yet, ask them to.
Like, they put out these amps. They were there for like 10 years. It's just ignoring that they existed in their own press.
Wow.
Like, what are you doing?
It's the most Gibson thing. It's such a Gibson thing. We're just going to... Like, the people at Gibson don't even know what's in their own catalogue. That's how messy the Gibson catalogue is from the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, I was like... Because, I mean, there's like multiple for sale near me, and I've thought about picking one up. There's a GA15 RVT. I think I got that model number correct. But essentially it's a 15 watt 1x12 with reverb and tremolo.
Great. That's kind of what you want.
Yeah, exactly. And
probably 6V6s in there.
Probably EL84s, to be honest. Wow. They did a lot of EL84 amps in that line. And it's one of those where the amp chassis is actually accessible on the back, not on the top or the front. And it's mounted to the bottom of the cabinet. So everything was like old school, like almost import amp style, where all the controls are on the floor side of the amp on the back.
The floor side?
Yeah. So if you pull up one of the Gibson Gold Tone amps, I'm gonna even put in back panel so that I can explain this a little better. And do an image search. You can flip it around. You can see that all of the controls are at the bottom of the cabinet.
Right.
So Yeah, so tubes are it's basically like a head, except they put a speaker above it. It's like like how Marshall is mounted to the bottom of the cabinet
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of the top of the head. I never realized how hard this is to describe. So,
Let us know if you're getting it, dear listener. It's
yeah.
basically, the controls are at the bottom, like the last place you will ever go to get to those
Yes,
controls.
you have to reach all the way around the back of the amp, the very bottom. It's a retro design. I get it.
Yeah.
But it was apparently so bad Gibson decided to forget they exist. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, they're a PCB amp. They do have another one coming that they let us play. I was told there's no embargo, so I can talk about this.
Wonderful.
I did ask. So they've got the Falcon 5, which is
Yeah.
a 7-watt amp. They've got the Falcon 20, which is a 12 or 14-watt amp.
Yeah.
They've also got the dual Falcon 40 that is coming, and I got to play that one. And that is essentially, I have the sheet here, but I'm not going to look at the wattage because I know that it's not 40. Let's be honest. They've set a standard.
Yeah.
So, but what it is a 2-channel amplifier with 2 identical channels, so you can set them however you want them.
Oh, I like that.
It is reminiscent of the way Mesa Boogie did the Fillmore series.
Yeah, I did my favorite, the amplifier that changed my mind about Mesa Boogie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I played them. They sound great, y'all. I'm not going to lie. They do sound really, really good. I played the 5-watt one. If you go over to my Instagram and go back through my reels a little bit, you can find me playing the DG335 through the small one. And I've got the wattage down to its lowest setting as well, so it's cranked, and it's just fun. It's a great sounding amp. They're a little pricey for what they are, I think.
Sure. What are they hitting? Like, what are they hitting in US dollars? Because I think
Let's see.
it was like something like 1,600 quid for the medium sized one. I think for the gigging one, and I was like, oh, it's just slight. I just wanted that down a touch. It's sort of just airing a bit too close, or I can get a Victory amp for that,
right?
And
so the Falcon 5 is the 110 combo. It is $1,500. And for the Falcon 20, which is a 12-watt combo, is $1,800. And so it's a little on the pricier end of things.
They've also made those dangerously close, like price wise, like dangerously close to really hurt the sales of the smaller one.
I agree. I think that smaller one, and if it had come in at like 11 or 1,200, I think they'd have just a monster sale on their hands.
I agree.
I don't know that 1,500 is going to be the price point that gets it going for them.
No, you've got to really love a 5-watt amp to spend that sort of money on it.
Exactly. A harmonica player, maybe, but a harmonica player is not going to go. Sorry, as a blues guy, I instantly go to like way blues players use amps.
Yeah, sure.
And if a harmonica player is going to spend $1,500, they're probably not going to buy this amp. They're probably going to buy something, I don't know, with a little more like character.
Yeah.
Not saying these don't have character, but I mean like a vintage amp or like something that's a little. Harmonica players in particular seem to like really obscure, weird amps.
Normally with some sort of snakeskin finish.
Yes. Yes. I hate that that's a thing, but that's a thing. So, but yeah, so I got really excited about those. I think they're good. I think a lot of people are going to end up playing and buying them. I don't know that they're absolutely remarkable though. I mean, I think they're cool, but shifting to some other amps I did get a chance to check out and see that I do think are a little more remarkable. The Rev amps are cool. I'm not gonna lie, the Rev put out 2 amps within 2 days. And while I can't even tell you the model numbers because that's not my vibe, that's not amps I really pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
But I Rev has not made an amp that's bad, as far as I'm aware.
They're very, very good at what they do. They just they tend to be slightly more modern than maybe you or I go taste wise.
Exactly.
Is it the Generator G50 that's their new amplifier, which is very much them doing a Mesa style thing?
Maybe. Right? I think they did the Generator 120.
Oh,
and maybe the D25 are the new ones. Don't quote me on that.
Right.
I do think the 120 is the new one. So it's the big boy. They brought out a new like giant wattage amplifier. Rev is obviously in that high gain world, and they're just a little more modern than I play. So we're going to go to the ones that I did get excited about, but that I will never own. So Martin Kidd over at Victory, they gave Martin free reign to do whatever the hell he wanted. And
that's so accurate. It's so accurate. That is the only possible explanation for these amplifiers.
So they told him, they said, hey, I mean, Martin's obviously been known for Cornford amps, which were
so good,
so incredible, highly regarded. And so he's sort of been designing these amps for Victory, and they've been great, but they've also been obviously made with price points in mind. It's like, what can you make for us that we can sell at this price point?
Yeah.
So that they can be, well, finally they told him, do what you want. Just make the amp you want to make. Y'all, they have made 2 rock priced Victory amps. And so they've made 2, the MK Clean, MK being Martin Kidd, and MK Overdrive. The MK Clean starts at 4,800 pounds or $5,000.
So much money.
The MK Overdrive is £4,999 or $5,199 US dollars. It's so expensive. But so I was reading through about these amps, and like the fact that I told you about before we started recording, that just shows you how ridiculous they are. I'm going to read verbatim from the website, y'all. Our MK series amps are available to order in a number of custom finishes, including your choice of panel color, handle, corners, and a wide selection of genuine leather coverings. The leather is exclusively supplied by Muirhead Scottish Leather, suppliers of leather to the House of Lords, Rolls-Royce, the Orient Express, Aston Martin, and now Victory Amplification.
It's just so insanely exclusive. Like, they could have gone just like go to it didn't matter where the leather came from. Like, just go. There's definitely like random, one fella leather shops where he sort of like rears the cattle himself and does it, but his leather's not going to be half as expensive as the leather they use on the Orient Express and the House of Lords.
It's so like half the cost of this amplifier is the leather. So I appreciate, I saw them. They look amazing. I guess they sound great. I didn't really try to hear things at NAMM because it was so loud.
Yeah,
there's no really hearing any detail at all.
No.
But they look beautiful. I'm sure they sound incredible. I did not play them, but I have to, like, this feels out of left field for Victory amplifiers because they've been such a like staunch, here's amps made at a price point that players can, truly afford.
Yeah, I mean, they're not cheap, but they're not super expensive. They did a great job at being like, hey, do you want something more exclusive than, buying a Vox or a Fender? Here you go. Here's these really well built, really well designed by a great amp designer that look cool and original.
Exactly.
And they even in recent times have focused on the affordable, like bringing out the individual pedals, like those V1 pedals that are just £200. They're
fantastic.
Amplifier and a pedal. The V7s, which are sort of whatever, like £600-700, and that is an amp. It's a real amp. You plug a cab into it, and they sound great. They've been sort of aiming at that more affordable area recently. So this, does feel crazy, but
I'm so
brilliant.
glad they exist, though.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're here.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a wonderful showpiece. And I'm sure they know it. I'm sure they know that. They're not going to sell a lot of these. These are going to be purchased by artists at extreme discounts, I imagine, mostly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, almost certainly. And I don't know. They look great. They sound great. They're super expensive. I'm not gonna have one. I realize that's wild. Listeners, y'all know I'm a Two Rock fanboy. But it just I love the idea that they just said, all right, do what you want, whatever. And that's actually been my thing that I like about Two Rock is that they design the best amplifier they can design first, and then figure out how expensive it's going to be. But they're also not wrapping it in the most premium leather imaginable on the planet.
That's it. It's just the weirdest decision ever. But it's fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
They're
no,
very cool.
So if any of you listeners do buy one, I'd love to hear your review. I also want to know what you do for a living.
Yeah, they are great. Now, I want to come back to the subject of your NAMM when we move over onto our Patreon in a quarter of an hour or so. Because I want to have a chat about some of the guitars you checked out. But first, just because this podcast is titled Amps and Boards, and I did say at the start I wanted to talk a little bit about pedal boards. I want to talk a little bit about pedal boards. Now, I'm very happy. I've used the Boss BCB 1000X. It's great. Like, I love the telescopic handle and wheels, which mean that I can, comfortably. I live like in a little village, so I'm like half an hour away from the train station to get to practice, and then the train station in Brighton is half an hour from the studio. So there's a lot of walking involved. So the pedal board on a telescopic thing is really saving my arm. Which is great. But I started just looking around at other pedal boards. This was all because I saw Jackson Brooksby on Instagram. He picked up a new mono pedal board recently and one of the mono power supplies. He did this little speedy thing where he built a pedal board using it. And that man is so neat. He's so tidy and the pedal board just looks so good. I was like, I want like a new sort of super neat, tidy pedal board, and the BCB 1000 is great, but it's like it's been toured a lot, it's knocked around a lot, and it's a mess. It's messy. I had to re-bolt in sort of an underside. It doesn't matter. It's complicated. I was looking around for I thought, maybe I'll grab one of these mono boards with the mono power supplies. That would be cool. And they would definitely the mono stuff is really, really good. It is very premiumly priced.
It is,
and it's. I'm not saying it's not worth the money. I'm saying that I probably have 5 or 6 pedal train pedal boards here, a Friedman pedal board, every single size of Boss pedal board, and a couple of other an Alder and Ash pedal board in the corner. Like, I have so many that another one that's costing a bunch of money feels like maybe something I shouldn't do. But I did want to just see what else was out there. What else does that mono thing? And I stumbled across something that I knew existed but have just ignored: Fender pedal boards. And I guess, dear listener, I ignored Fender doing pedal boards because I wasn't especially taken with a lot of the Fender pedals. And I've kind of felt every time Fender try and do something different, like I don't like Fender's modern guitars even. I don't like Fender's amps that aren't the amps that, were designed in the 60s. Yeah, it's that sort of thing. I really like what Fender used to do. I don't really like what Fender do now. They're still a great brand because they make all that old stuff, but I'm never that interested in their new things. So I just ignored their pedal board as probably being just cheap and standard and stuff. And they did pedal boards and they did power supplies. I had a closer look at their pedal boards, and they're probably the best value for money and best pedal board that you can buy at the moment at the prices that they are. They're doing 3 sizes, but their pedal boards come not only with sort of slatted areas for you to run cabling through, they've also considered tiny little, I don't know how to describe them, the sort of pedal tidy bits. Philip, how do you?
So they've got, I'm looking at them now. There's basically there's a metal loop that they cut out of the surface that goes underneath it that acts like a cable anchor, like an anchor tie.
Yeah.
And so it's got it attached. You don't have to attach your own little peel off the back and stick this cable tie anchor. It's got anchors built into the bottom of the pedal board.
Yeah. Yeah, which is extremely handy.
It's got the pedal. It's got your power supply mount already built into the pedal board, which is something that Gator pedal boards have done. That I was really surprised not more people have done. Like it's an adjustable for multiple power supplies to mount it underneath without having to do some of the ludicrous things we do to mount pedal board power supplies underneath.
Yeah, exactly. It is super handy. The mount for the power supply will fit sort of any, sort of modern standard power supply. They haven't made it weird, so it just fits theirs. It's
Right.
suitable for anything. They've also added like little rubber stoppered in and out areas so that you can run cabling into the pedal board and things like that. It's very useful. They come with a soft bag as well, a pretty, I wish they'd do a hard case, but it's fine. They do a really robust looking soft bag. And then the small size is 125 pounds. The medium size is 139 and the large is 179 pounds. That is...
And for US listeners, that means that the small one is $170. The large one is $270.
That is affordable. I even like the anodized aluminium finish that these all come in, very much in the style of what Mono had been doing.
See,
beforehand.
that is actually my one and only knock on them.
Oh, you don't like it?
I just want black. Just give me flat black.
Fair enough. But then on top of the pedal boards themselves, they introduced their range of engine room power supplies. I know this is old news, dear listener. I've just never really spoken about them just because I really like my Chox power supplies. I really like the MXR ISO brick. But when I was talking to Jackson about his monoboard, he said, the only thing is that the transformer's on the outside, so you've got like a thin little cable, and it always worries me at gigs. And I realized that, I'm using the MXR ISO brig on my board. Every time I shut my pedal board case, the latches, I'm freaking out that I'm going to that my power cable is going to get cut because it's a little thin one in there. And it is a bad design, to have that sort of thing. And it makes me unable to do things very quickly, I guess, when you're sort of rushing off stage, because I'm like, I have to make sure I don't shut this on the pedal. The engine rooms all have IEC connectors straight out of the power supplies with the transformer built in, so it means you've got a nice big thick hefty cable. There's nothing thin that's going to get trodden on or clipped away. And then even on the small power supply, which is £109, it's offering you 5 9-volt outputs, isolated outputs at 500 milliamps per output. So easy to, you can daisy chain a couple of pedals on that anyway, and just use the small one if you want to do that sort of thing. They do 2 other sizes of the pedal boards, which offer a bunch of additional stuff. The power supplies are super affordable as well, and they match look wise, and they fit perfectly into the little bit on the bottom of the pedal board. This is such a set. They've really thought this through.
I think it's. I was surprised as you mentioned this to me, and I was like, I didn't know this existed. I had no idea. And I think they're extremely well built. I think they thought about a lot of little things that you tend to pay premium for in some other aspects, like the ports where you can add in your ins and outs. They've got multiple ports on the board. Some are on the side, some are on the front, depending on which size board you're getting. And it doesn't come with the in and out. But you can buy your own. I've got a whole I've got a bag in a container somewhere that has a bunch of XLR and 1/4 inch ins and outs that would fit in there already from past pedal boards. Another one of those times where I built a giant pedal board and decided I hated it and reduced the size, so I got stuck with parts.
Yeah. Well, I don't. I guess I'm sure you already knew about this, oh dear listener. But honestly, I've been sitting around here thinking that pedal train are still, the best standard thing you can get out there if you don't want to spend a bunch of money. I think it might actually be Fender now. Again, I wish there were hard case options.
Yes.
I wouldn't take a soft bag on tour Not because necessarily things are going to get knocked around, but if you're packing a van, it becomes more difficult when you've got sort of soft things to do that.
Yeah, I
But
think
it's
that,
just very
that
good.
I think that's the only real downfall of them, and maybe there's some hope that they will eventually offer hard cases that fit them.
Yeah.
I'm over here looking real quickly to see if how close they are to some of the pedal train sized pedal boards. So maybe a pedal train case will fit, if you wanted to get a hard case,
Yeah.
will fit the for example, the it's not quite the same, but the small size fender board is almost the size of the pedal train classic 1.
Is it? Oh, that's interesting.
Actually, it is. I'm over on Pedal Playground. It is identical size wise to the fender is about 3/10 of an inch longer. So you'll have to decide if that has room in the case. But the Pedal Train Junior, the classic Junior, is almost identical size to the small.
Wow.
It may fit in the same case.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, very good. Very good. Something that Fender did that was great that I didn't even realize. So I thoroughly recommend checking those out, dear listener. Now, we're coming up to the end of this week's episode, the 5th episode in season 5 of the Guitar Nerds podcast. Philip and I are going to head over to the Patreon, patreon.com/Guitar Nerds. You can join us there too, dear listener. We're going to be talking about, I want to ask Philip about some ridiculous guitars that he saw, some proper 10 granders that he even considered. Well, I don't know if he actually seriously considered, but still, I want to talk about those, and then maybe we'll talk about some other weird guitars. There was also a pretty good question from Ben Caffrey about stereo rigs and what to use with those, so maybe we'll talk about that as well. Before we go, I just want to thank all of our top tier, our $10 tier Patreon supporters. I want to thank them all by name for being such wonderful people and supporting the podcast and allowing us to do this. So thank you very much to Nicholas Strom, to Rocket Rob Patterson, to Phil Sadler, Marcus Deluxe, Suresh, Dorsonic Pickups, Rob Witherden, Anton Fryant, Barry Gresbick, Steve Davis, John Conaway, Yogi the Guitarist, Ty Allen, Carl Harris, Sean Hughes, Andy Hoffler, Eric Hemmer, Jeffrey Wax, Dan Pilver, Brian Einsler, Dylan Griffiths, Mark Kizao Kadawaki, Eric File, Peter Pesce, Chris Franklin, Andy Manley, Joe Puttick, Blake Wyland, Phil Radomski, Dave Lee, Ross Edwards, Jason Wharton, James Dorr, Jake Gray, Derek Rich, Scott Kennedy, Steve Merkel, Abe Matthews, Christopher Loseth, Stephen Burke, Robin Smith, Kytopia the Band, Andy McKenzie, Brad Page, Rob Nordvik, Scott O'Brien, and of course, Moo Gravit. Thank you all. You're wonderful. And on that note, thank you very much, Philip, for joining us again.
I'm happy to be here. I love yelling about amps. It's my favorite pastime.
Well, yes, exactly. Well, let's go continue that pastime over on the Patreon. We'll be back next week, dear listener, with more of this guitar nerdery. Farewell.
Adios.